Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 and Dakota Nation's territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this morning. With me on the panel are Ms. Carrie Linkletter and Mr. Robert Buss. Our assessor this morning is Mr. Cam Wong, and the secretary is Ms. Belen Romo. Please note that all staff, panel members, and hearing participants appearing in person are to remain masked for the duration of the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council, independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing item 1 on our docket today, 295 York Avenue. Ms. Rojo, will you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
I'm Wong.
And you affirm the event you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Sid Story.
And you affirm the event you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so as I stated, we will be starting with 295 York Avenue. We do have some questions regarding this property. We believe that there is some additional evidence that has been brought forward. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to open SharePoint here.
It's a copy of a premise lease that was entered into in 2012.
Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I was just saying that the evidence is the premise lease. It's dated December of 2012, reflecting a commencement date of 2/13, and it's a 10-year lease. We had difficulty. The owner of
Okay, Mr. Story, you're not giving evidence right now. Okay, we just have some questions whether or not we're going to allow this evidence.
Okay.
Because we had received a previous evidence from you before.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe the panel members have some questions regarding Mr. Buss. Ms. Linklater, you have any
no
questions?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Linklater?
I have no questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Wong, do you object to Mr. Wong? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Do you object to Mr. Story providing evidence at this time? This is not, it would not, I have not seen the evidence. It would not appear to be rebuttal evidence. It would appear to be new evidence. Is that correct, Mr. Story?
Well, it's rebuttal evidence insofar as the city is using a much higher rate. So it would be rebuttal in our opinion, but that would be up to the board to decide.
I'm sorry, wasn't this, I had received some notice saying that this one was going to be confirmed?
The owner is very sick right now, and we only just were able to track down this lease. We got it yesterday. So our intention was to confirm it and go to the municipal board. We will make that decision after this board makes their decision as to whether it's admissible or not.
Okay, Mr. Would you object to new evidence being admitted at this time?
Can I see it?
We don't have it yet, and we haven't seen it yet. So just we have to make a decision first whether or not we're going to allow it. Okay, so if the board members have no other questions, we will take a few minutes to make our decision then.
Thank you.
Okay, the address is 295 York. The business ID is 50285. And we have a rental value of $250,000 with a area of 11,911 square feet at a rate of an overall rate of $20.99. We do have some rent comparable showing that the rate that is being used is in line with what is in the market, and we're responsible for making sure that the rates are similar to what other businesses might be charged, and we feel that that's the $20.99 is supported, but also that the this $250,000 annual rental value is actually a decision from the 2020 BA appeal, and it was carried over from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, and so this has already been heard, and the $250,000 was the decision from the Board of Revision, and I ask that you maintain the $250,000.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Wong?
Yes, please. Mr. Wong, have you inspected the site?
Not recently, no.
Okay. Do your field forms or anything make any reference to the lease that was entered into in December of 2013? A 10-year lease? Again, was the city aware that there was a 10-year lease?
I don't believe that we have a lease on file.
Okay. Just then I'll just ask a couple real quick questions just for my own information. The first comp, which is 333 St. Mary's, is that Brown Social Club?
Possibly.
You don't know?
I don't know.
17,500, which is gigantic. Is that the Shark Club?
Possibly.
Is the Shark Club a casino?
I don't know.
No, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay. But the 17,000 square foot tenant is the Shark Club, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know. You didn't do these comps?
I did.
How did you not know as much? Okay, sorry.
I believe they're all restaurants.
Yeah, okay. 311 Portage. Are you familiar with which one that is? I guess not. And 25 Forks Market, is that Spaghetti Factory?
Possibly.
Okay. And what's 260 Hargrave?
I don't know.
Yeah, those are all the questions I have, Mr. Wong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buss, any questions?
You said you hadn't inspected it recently. Have you inspected it at any time?
Yes.
When did you last inspect it?
I believe it's in maybe about 2015.
2015. And you haven't seen any leases pertaining to this property?
No, I spoke with the property, the restaurant owner when I inspected the property in 2015, and he made me aware of the space that they were leasing, and they gave me some information with regards to the space that they were leasing.
Okay.
That's how we arrived at our 11,911 square feet.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
May
Thank
I
you.
have a follow-up question, please?
Just wait, please, Mr. Story. Ms. Linklater, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Story, your follow-up question?
Yes, Mr. Wong, when you did the inspection in 2015, was the back half of the restaurant decommissioned? Was it in use, or was it storage and just a blank space? Do you recall?
I believe at that time the back area was not being used, and but the owner had planned to use the full 11,911 square feet by 2016.
Okay, and you've mentioned twice now, you've mentioned the restaurant owner. Who's that, Mr. Stephen?
Yes.
Stephen? Okay, so he did, Mr. Stephen is of the opinion that he did give you a copy of the lease, or at least told you that the rent was $4,000 a month. You're not familiar, you don't recall?
He did. He told me that he was actually, at the time, he was okay with the rate that we were charging, which is about $22. And at the time he told me he was okay with that. Just that he wanted he wasn't sure about the area, that the area was incorrect, and so he showed me what was going on. And so at the time there was 7,901 square feet being used, but they said that they plan to have the 11,000 in use by the end of 2016.
Right, and that was, did he mention that was because of the airline contract, food contract?
I don't know.
Did he talk about percentage rent to your recollection?
No.
No? Okay. And do you recall, was it operating at that time as Carney Steakhouse?
Possibly, yes.
C-R-N-E, yeah, that's okay. Okay, so just to recap, he indicated that the premise under lease was 11,900 square feet. You're saying that he didn't mention it, but you indicated it looked like the back end was in darkness. And that he, at that time, which was 216, was probably okay with the rate of $20.99, correct?
He was okay with a rate of $22, $23.
Yeah, and it's and your rent is essentially model driven based on your comps, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I won't take long. Let me just check a couple of little things here. No, there's no parking with the restaurant. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
I think that's all, Mr. Wong. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Buss, do you have any questions that have arisen?
No questions.
Ms. Linklater?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very unique situation. This is more of a pleading than a presentation. The restaurant was under lease starting in December of 2012 is when the lease was written, and it was a commencement date of December 2013, and it was a 10-year lease. And it included the existing, there had been a restaurant in there prior to Mr. Stephen going in. So it was the premise space plus the improvements in equipment. In addition to that, there was a contract with one of the major airlines to do their catering, do their food for the aircraft. So it was written at $4,000 a month, which is $48,000 a year, minimum rent. It's in the lease. If you want to read the first 2 pages, you captured also, but I'll go over it quickly. So the minimum rent is $4,000 a month. They also are on percentage rent, and they pay 14% of the gross rent, of the gross revenue, in excess of $2 million a year. In 2014 and 2015, they were above $2 million a year because of the airline contract. And they paid their percentage rent for those 2 years. 2016 came along, and that's when Mr. Wong the contract, but didn't hit the minimum of 2 million in 2016. They did in 14 and 15. So the intention of this lease was to almost make them partners, the landlord almost partners, because if the volume was there, and that was bringing in some other expertise, they would have hit that million. So the bottom line is they entered into a lease at 14% over 2 million. And the way it worked is if they passed 2.5 million, it went to 20%. So, and the only years that they were even close were 2014 and 15. The premise that the restaurant was operating with, considered to be the restaurant in the kitchen, was about 5,500 square feet. But the lease, because it's one space, the lease was written over 11,000. But the back end has always been decommissioned. They don't use it. It's in darkness. Last time I was there, it was just in darkness. Right now, the whole restaurant's been closed since March of 2020. It hasn't been opened at all. So the dilemma we have is $4,000 a month certainly isn't the market rent on this space, but $25 a square foot isn't the market value either, because there's no market for it. A downtown restaurant, steakhouse with no parking on York and Smith Street, basically, The owner is the landlord, the landlord is the owner of the building. So this is a very creative lease, but that's the lease. So we're suggesting, and what's happened is the landlord is responsible out of his minimum rent of $4,000 a month. The landlord is responsible for the realty taxes. So the realty taxes are up to date and the rent is up to date. But the restaurant's been closed now since March of 2020. So I'm asking the board to consider taking a rate of about $15 a square foot, which would be $178,000 plus $29,000 cost to operate from Mr. Wong's schedule. Comes out to $207,000 as an ARV. You've got the lease in due course. You might want to read it. It's quite different than anything I've seen. I've been in this business for 31 years. It's a percentage rent, but it doesn't hit until it hits a certain minimum, and the minimum includes a contract that they no longer have. So that's
Mr. Story, I'm going to remind you again that we do not have the lease because we have not accepted any new evidence. We're only verbal argument.
Yeah, I'm not referring you to the lease. I'm just telling you what the lease, what's in the lease. And,
okay, sorry.
And the owner is of the opinion, Madam Chair, that he shared this information with the assessor in 2016.
Oh, okay.
And so the assessor should have that.
Sorry, some of this information that Mr. Story is talking about, I actually did get that information with regards to the sales and stuff.
Okay.
It's just that like it was a while ago, and I didn't remember until I actually read some of the read a note that I had put in. So you know what Mr. Story is saying about the lease and the percentage of sales is I would say it's accurate.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, continue, Mr. Story.
I won't belabor the point. So we have a situation where the face lease, the lease that's written, doesn't capture the revenue that has since departed, which is the lease. It's not using all the space. So I don't think it's appropriate. It's much too low. Mr. Wong's, I think, is a bit on the high side. I think there's some national chains. This is a local operation, it's not a national chain. It is affiliated with 6 other restaurants. So I'm suggesting the $15 is as the amount, and might be reasonable given the circumstance. And with that, I would ask the board consider an ARV of 207,840, which is the full 11,911 at $15, and the 29,182 cost to operate provided in Mr. Wong's evidence, a total of 207,840. It's something less, but it keeps it in front of us in the system, and hopefully this is coming due in 2/13, so I think somebody will be rewriting the lease, we hope. But it's a confusing lease, and I apologize to the board. We got it late. Mr. Stephen has been very sick, and we had some difficulty getting it, and it turned up yesterday, so my apologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Mr. Wong, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Did you inspect the property?
Oh, I've been there 40 times, perhaps. Yes.
Have you been in there like in the last year or two?
I haven't been anywhere for 2 years. I haven't been out. When
was the last time you saw the property?
I was there for dinner. Must have been before March of 20. I would say in 2019. I've been in there for reasons other than to eat, but I was in there to eat as well a few times.
Yeah. So do you know if they are at that time, if they were using Mr. Stefan was saying that they were planning to use the space by the end of 2016. Is that the case?
they thought they were getting the contract, but it didn't materialize. That was a contract with, I think it was WestJet. It was one of the airlines. They were doing the catering. And that was a justification for the, and the additional space. It couldn't be, it doesn't demise. It's very difficult to demise the space. It would be large costs. And because it was an existing restaurant, the bar was in place, everything was there already. Demising the space wasn't thought to be an option that was economically viable. But the back end, to my, if you've been there, you'll recall there's a black curtain in the middle of the restaurant, and that divides the front and the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're requesting $15 at a 207,000 ARV?
Yes, I think that's reasonable. They can't get 15. He deals at arm's length with the landlord. The landlord has put something in that because of the contract that 14% is high. Imagine 20%, if you read the lease, we can't talk about the lease, but the percentage rent goes up to 20% if they hit 2.5 million. So
the say with the 14%, they would get 14% of $2 million as rent?
No, they get 14% of sales in excess of 2 million a year, and 20% on sales in excess of 2.5 a year. It's all in the documents we sent. It's not a market rent. It's a contract rent, and it's very unique. But you have the some unique things because this is a local chain. It's got a very good reputation. So bless you. So. So yes, it's not a market rent. 15 is probably, and you know, you can look at, there have been along that strip, and this is new evidence, I shouldn't even bring it up, but the Pony Corral was there and left, and they were around $11 a square foot. So local chains can only pay so much. The national chains with their covenants get landlord TIs and whatnot. They don't. This particular doesn't. So what I'm saying to the board is that the market rent is not $4,000 a month. That's a contract rent, but I don't believe it's in the 20s. That's just my experience from a consumer of restaurants and a tax agent who handles quite a number of them. And I apologize for this, but it's because Mr. Stephen has been sick that he wasn't available to anybody. And so it turned out that the document we were searching for in his house turned out by his CFO yesterday, and that was the lease. If we had it earlier, we would have submitted.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wong. Do you have any further questions for Mr. Story?
So yeah, I guess just to make sure. So you are you certain that the rear portion that was supposedly for the WestJet contract is not being used?
It's not being used, no. And when they do their budgeting, according to Stephen, when they do their budgeting, they put a cost in on the restaurant operation, restaurant and kitchen of 5,500 square feet for management bonuses and things if they're operating.
That's all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buss, do you have any questions?
Yes, you said this was a national chain, Mr. Story?
No, it's not a national chain, Mr. Buss. It's Well Hospitality. It's they've got about 6 restaurants in Winnipeg.
Okay.
Desert Cookery, 529. Can't remember more. Oh, Alina's the new one. Yes, and the reason I mention that is the leases, in my experience, and you've been around as long as I have. My experience is the national chains have national covenants and they can get TIs, landlord inducements, but they're usually reflected in the rents. So when you see a chain coming into town, a national chain, if they're willing to give their corporate covenant, they'll likely hit $25 to $30 because they're paying inducements.
Okay.
But local guys don't get that. They don't get that. They don't get that benefit.
Yeah. And you were saying that the restaurant has been closed for a while.
March of 2020.
But physically, the restaurant is still there?
It's still there. It's part of the building. It's part of the,
Yeah.
it used to be the Sheraton many years ago.
Okay.
And it's an interesting property, Mr. Buss, because if you come in off of York, you're entering 295 York. If you come in off of Smith Street, it's 160 Smith. And that's why the back is quite, you could access the back through Smith Street, but access to the parking structure is off of York.
Okay.
And I should tell you, it doesn't have parking dedicated, but it does have, they validate your parking. But the parking is on the 6th floor of the parkade. And that's not very desirable for people leaving a restaurant late at night to go into a parkade 6 floors up to get your.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been well accepted by the public, according to Mr. Stephen.
Okay. There was a mention of a previous hearing. Were you representing that property, this property at that hearing?
Yes, and at that time, that was based on, we were looking, they had operated, and 14 and 15, they hit minimum. They were over 2 million. So we had that, and that was the, I think our suggestion was, the suggestion we made was a 250, I believe. Because it shows in the assessor's brief that I think it was by the applicant. Yes, it shows it was the evidence presented by the applicant. It was 306,000, but it was quite viable then. It had the contract, and it had hit the minimum. So that's $2 million, which is for downtown restaurants is pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Story. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Do you have any questions?
I do, just one question. Mr. Story, I just wanted some clarification on the contract with WestJet that you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Did it indeed materialize?
Yes, for 2 years.
Okay, so
and that's why they hit minimum.
Right.
They were over
okay.
they were over 2 million in 14 and 15. 16.
So in 20,
it wasn't renewed.
it wasn't okay. Thank you. That was
When
my.
Mr. Wong had talked to Mr. Stephen, they expected it to be renewed, but it wasn't.
All right. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just have one question for you. The back end of the restaurant that was not being used, what was the square footage of that?
Well,
approximately.
it's all part of the 11,000, and what they did is they did salaries, bonuses, and everything with a pro forma with the projections of 5,500. So it's about half was decommissioned.
Okay.
11,000 square feet is a huge square footage for a local restaurant.
No, I understand that. I just wanted an approximate.
Yeah, it's half. They deem it to be half and half. It's probably close to that.
Okay,
I
thank
think the floor plan shouldn't make the lease. At the back of the lease is a floor plan. That can give you an idea if you want to see.
No, that's fine. It was just an approximate. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
All right. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, not me.
With your question regarding the back area, are you talking about the back area that might not be used?
Yes.
I have 7,901 as the restaurant.
That's restaurant and kitchen, Mr. Wong?
And 4,009, I believe, is the other part.
Okay, so same, around the same ballpark. Okay. Thank you very much.
And based off of what Mr. Story is saying with regards to the back area, I believe that the rental value that he's requesting is reasonable, and I would be agreeable to that 207,000 annual rental value. That would be my summation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. Okay, thank you. All right, we have heard all the matters on the docket this morning. Be closing the docket for today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, and Mr. Wong.
Thank you.
Okay, the hearing is now adjourned.
Good day.
Thank you.